Welcome everybody to our 11th breakfast. I appreciate you getting up so early to come and join us. And this is a great way to start NBAA. So your support, your encouragement, and of course your attendance is so important to us, so thanks. My name's Dennis Blackburn, and we have a tremendous number of guests today from different parts of the world. I've met people from Singapore, China, Malaysia, throughout the Pacific Rim. I think just about every place in Europe is represented. I've met people today from Brazil, Mexico. Just met somebody, an old friend of mine from Russia. So we appreciate you coming so far to join us. And of course, all of you from here in the States, it's nice to have you here. We're going to try to expedite things a little bit this morning. We're going to start with a word of prayer. My friend Deke Green, no relation to Steve Green, other than they're brothers. And you'll see the difference in a minute. But anyway, Deke, as you know, was an astronaut candidate and then ran the 89th Air Wing and the presidential fleet, and then saw the light and came into corporate aviation to head up the GE flight department, and has been a long-time supporter and friend of ours. Deke, will you come up, please?
Thank you very much, Dennis. So yes, I'm Steve's shorter brother. Let us pray. Father God, we want to thank you. We want to thank you for your sacrifice. We want to thank you for sending us your servant here to tell us more about leadership so that we can be better leaders and better Christians for you. Send your spirit here to be with us and open our hearts to listen what your servant has to say. It is in Jesus' precious name and for his sake I pray. Amen.
Well, I'm not going to do any introduction because I think by this time everybody knows who Steve Green is. Can you hear okay back there?
No.
Okay. Larry, if you can turn it up a little bit. Steve Green, of course, is the president of Hobby Lobby, and he's got a message today about what all he is doing in his leadership in that role, but also something pretty exciting about what's going on in Washington, D.C. So Steve, if you'll come up and join us.
I appreciate it. It's an honor for me to be here today to share a little bit about our story and where we're at. We've got some exciting things going on, as was mentioned there in D.C. I'm going to start a little bit and tell you how we got there briefly. My father started Hobby Lobby, and he went into the retail business when he was in high school. He started at a 5 and dime McClellan's store in Altus, Oklahoma, small town in Oklahoma. And this was the McClellan store that he got started when he was a junior in high school. There was a program called DECA, Distributive Education, where part of your class, part of your school was getting the job, and your boss would tell how you were doing and learning, and that became part of your school. And then he went to another company called TG&Y. Some of you may recall or remember a company called TG&Y. It's a general merchandise company based in Oklahoma City. So he moved to Oklahoma City, which is where I was born. I lived there all my life. And this is a store that he opened as he was managing there. And then it was in 1970 when he started manufacturing mini frames. There was a design trend at the time to decorate walls with a lot of mini frames on the wall, and saw an opportunity, so he started manufacturing mini frames with another gentleman. This is the dining room of the home that I grew up in, where they converted to their warehouse, I guess. And me and my brother would glue frames for 7 cents a frame. We had to buy about 4 or 5 vices. We would put some glue on the ends of the frames, put in these vices, tighten them up, and rotate them. And by the time we got through, we'd come back and take the one out and start put another one in. So that's how me and my brother earned our bubblegum money. That was in 1970. And then it was not until 1972 when he rented 600 square feet in this particular building, one of those door fronts, where in the back 300 square feet, he put the manufacturing operation, called it, the Rico is what that manufacturing was called. And then in the front 300 square feet, opened up a small retail store calling it Hobby Lobby, selling some arts and craft supplies, and beads, and a variety of things. And that's how we got started. He didn't leave his day job until 1975. So for 3 years, my mom kind of ran this, was paid nothing just to keep the thing going. It was a startup, and but then 3 years later, Dad left TGNY to go full-time into this business. Today, if you were to look at our purpose statement, what you'll find is that the number one purpose on our list is honoring the Lord in all we do by operating the company in the manner consistent with biblical principles. My father's grown the business when he left in 1975, and this year we'll do about $4.5 billion. The first year we'll hit 800 stores. We're in 47 of the 48 states. We are looking in the 48 contiguous states. We're not looking in Alaska or Hawaii. And so we can put about 1,400 stores. We'll be up to about 800 in those 48 states. And but Dad has always known that we wanted to operate the business according to biblical principles. Growing up in a Christian home, we went to church, every Sunday and Wednesday, and that was the way we grew up. And that was just the way we operated. And so this is when we came to defining what our statement of purpose was. This was the first statement that we came up with. The very last statement is that we believe that it is by God's grace and provision that Hobby Lobby has endured. He has been faithful in the past, and we trust Him for the future. And briefly, there's been 2 family meetings that were challenging for the family. The first was in 1986, and it was because of 1985. 1985 is the only year in our history where we lost money. And because of that, in 1986, Dad invited the family over, and at the time I had 2 cousins involved in the business. My wife was working there, and my sister, brother-in-law, mom, dad, we were all in the business, and many of us still are. But at that time, Dad sat us down and said he didn't know how we would survive. And it was because of that loss, and at the time we didn't make our profits until the 4th quarter, and so there was 9 months of some challenging times. And Dad had always been able to figure out how we would be able to survive, but at this point he did not know how that we would make it. So he wanted to let the family know. Well, that year wound up being the best profit year we had ever had by almost double. And the lesson learned, and he's written about it in one of his books, is that this is really not our business. The business is God's, and our role is to operate it according to the principles that He has given us in His Word. We are stewards of what God has entrusted to us. And that was the lesson learned there. The second family meeting was a few years back when we were told by our government that we had to take part in taking life. That's the way we saw it. Some may see it differently, but that's the way we saw it with the healthcare mandate that would require that us freely provide to our employees products that could abort. And that was what led to the Supreme Court case that we were fortunate enough to have won. But the family meeting that Dad called, there was about 18 of us there with what we refer to as our parents Gen 1, me, my brother and sister Gen 2, and our kids Gen 3. Everybody was able to share, and when all was said and done, it was pretty much unanimous. We really did not have a choice. We felt like we had to sue the government that we loved. I've traveled enough overseas to have a great appreciation for our country and love our country, but this was a situation where we just felt like we had no option but had to sue. So we did. We were successful, and we're thankful for that. But again, it was another example, another way of how that the business, if we're going to be true to our first statement, we felt like we had to do that. That's what we did. So I have been blessed to be in a family that has been guided by this book, a part of a business that uses the book as a guide on how it operates. And I am blessed to be in a nation that is built on principles our founders found in this book. So I have been blessed in many ways by this book. And that is part of what has driven us to be on this journey that we are in putting in a Bible museum in Washington, D.C. The museum will open next month, the 18th, and tell you a little bit about that. And first, let me play a little video that tells a little bit about this book.
is written. It is hated. It is against the law. It is fuel for the flame. It is cherished. It is what the law was built upon. It is why some will burn at the stake. It is the whip of the master and the strength of the slave. It is a railroad to freedom, a guiding star. It is hope beating in the hearts of the poor. It is poetry, memorized and sung. It is propaganda repeated until ears become numb. It is ancient. It is wisdom tattooed on our skin. It is justice rulers swear to uphold. It is knowledge carved into walls of institutions. It is genius. It is foolish. It is war starting. It is peacemaking. It is in the beginning. It is revelation. It is Middle Ages. It is timeless. It is future for those with faith. It is history for the atheist. It is present. It is inescapable. It is a story. It is a story. It is a book. It is ink on pages. It is tangible. It is physical. Hold it. Read. Taste it. See. It is fleshly. It is human. It is otherworldly. It is strange. It is mystic. It is mysteriously powerful. It is inside outing. It is upside downing. It has turned the earth on its head. It has shaped our world, and yet it is a world often left unexplored. It is a world worth exploring. It is worth your time. What you discover just might be divine.
So this is a book that has had an impact on our world. As I said, it's impacted our family, our business, our nation. And so what we want to do is we wanted to build a museum, as the idea was actually brought to us by some others that had this desire to put in a Bible museum. And so it started us on a journey. In 2009, we bought our first artifact, and then in 2010, we formed this 501c3 called the Museum of the Bible. So in essence, we were just 10 years ago, and it was towards the end of the 2010 when we first got started, we got formed, and the real purpose, the goal, the mission is to invite all people to engage with the Bible. That's simply what it is. We are probably more ignorant of this book in this nation as we have ever been, partly because, in my belief, we don't teach it as we once did. It used to be a staple part of our education system, but it no longer is. And so we just think that people need to be reintroduced to this book and be inspired to engage with it. And that's the goal and what we strive to do. When we first got started, our collection was growing, and it was in our closet, and it was really not doing us any good. We bought the items that we were collecting because we wanted to tell this book's story, not because we were, per se, collectors. And so at the time, in 2009, 2010, we had no idea when the museum would open. We had no location. It was just this dream. And so we decided we would start telling the book story through a traveling exhibit. We opened one here in the U.S. in Oklahoma City, and it traveled to 6 cities until the first of last year. We closed it down to focus on the museum there in D.C. And this is what it looked like when it was in Colorado Springs. We call it Passages. It started about 15,000 square feet in Oklahoma City. It was about 40,000 square feet when we're here in Colorado Springs, ending up in Santa Clarita, California, north of LA, when we closed it down last year. This opened up some opportunities for us to do some international exhibits. The first one was at the Vatican. We called it Verbum Domini, and that was in 2012. And then in 2014, we went back, called it Verbum Domini 2, where we were there during the Lent season, both in 2012 and in 2014. That opened the door for us to do an exhibit in Cuba. This was in 2014 at the National Cathedral in Havana. We went back in 2016, last year, in Santiago, Cuba, where we again had a great reception there. We were there about 30 days. I think about 30,000 people came through both of those exhibits in Cuba. We also had one in Jerusalem at the National Bible, Bible Lands Museum, which is by the National Museum there in Jerusalem. We called it the Book of Books, talking about the Jewish roots of Christianity. This year we had an exhibit in Germany. It traveled to 3 cities. This is where it opened in Augsburg, celebrating the 500th anniversary of the Reformation. And so we've done several exhibits around. There's opportunities for us to do some others, and others are being discussed from London to some Asian cities and a variety, because many people, millions will come to the museum in D.C., but many more millions will never make it to D.C. So there's ways for us to take this story on the road. We also have a couple other initiatives that our education initiative and research. We have an archaeological dig in Israel we're working on. We're developing curriculum for the schools. We would like to see that the Bible is taught in a non-sectarian way, just teaching the facts of this book and showing its impact on our world, and showing kind of the same 3 ways that we look at it within the museum. So the museum itself, I'll kind of go over it. It's going to be 430,000 square feet of museum space. It's just 3 blocks from the Capitol, a couple of blocks from the Air and Space Museum, if you're familiar with the Air and Space Museum there in D.C., one of the most attended museums. This is the building. It was originally built in 1923 as a refrigerated warehouse. The big picture there, you can see what looks to be a bridge going into the 2nd floor. That is a spur of the railroad track that would pull into the building. So they pull into the building with they were freight and offloaded. The first refrigerated warehouse there in D.C. So the building is built sturdy, which is the good news. But the bad news is it's built sturdy. We're trying to renovate it. And so built in 1923, then it was expanded, and then the rest of the block was, an office building was built next to it to fill in the rest of the block. So we acquired both the buildings, and we're adding 2 floors on top of this building. We took the expansion all the way down, rebuilt it. We're adding 1 floor on top of the office building. That floor will expand the whole block, and so it's been exciting. This is what the front doors look like now. So that bridge, which came into this space, we have 2 bronze panels either side that represent the Gutenberg Bible, Genesis chapter 1, that flank either side of the entryway. Those panels collectively weigh about 16 tons, and it's going to be gorgeous looking entry there. The entry lobby as you come in has a digital ceiling there on the top you can see on the right, and that's an actual shot on the left that shows what it looked like. Some of these shots were about a month ago. There's a children's area on that first floor as visitors come in. We have a coffee shop that will be in the mezzanine level. People will enjoy. The elevators themselves are environmental. You go in, you want to go to the history floor, we can put you inside Cave 4 looking out at the Dead Sea, or into the Jerusalem Chamber at Westminster Abbey, where a portion of the King James Version was printed, or other sites that even the elevator will be interesting. There's 3 ways that we primarily look at this book, though, and there's 3 floors, each of them dedicated to one of the ways. The impact, the narrative, and the history. Walk through each of those, starting with the impact floor. This book speaks into every area of life, and it has impacted every area of life. The average person on the street has no clue to the degree that this book has impacted their life, and that's what the goal of this floor is. And there's like 30 different exhibits. One is just the Bible's impact on this nation. You can argue about what our founders' faith was. That's not our argument. The point that we would like to point out is that many of the principles our nation was built on, our founders found in the Bible. The idea that all men are created equal, where did that come from? Well, it came from the Bible. Now, our founders weren't perfect. This nation is not perfect. It never has been, and it never will be. But our founders did a great job in striving to build a nation on the principles found in this book, and has been very successful, obviously, as a nation. And so we show the Bible's impact on our nation, and then just how the Bible's impacted our world. Life magazine came out with a publication in 2000 that was 100 most impactful or important events of a millennium. So for 1,000 years, from the year 1000 to the year 2000, what were the most impactful events? Number 1 on that list was Gutenberg prints the Bible. It wasn't the Gutenberg press. It was Gutenberg prints the Bible. That changed our world in ways that most people don't fully appreciate or understand to the degree that that event impacted the world. Number 3 on that list was Luther Knox. In essence, it was the 95 Thesis nailed to the Wittenberg door, where he was challenging some of the teachings of the church. And so those are 2 of the top 3 events and the impact that they've had on our world. And so so that's what we just show in here, whether it be, the Gutenberg or science. Some leading scientists were had a biblical worldview. Galileo, Copernicus, and talking to a gentleman yesterday in the office, and he was reading some of the original writings of some of the leading scientists, and he just said it was just, some of their writings were overt. They were seeking, they were studying this creator God that they knew about from the Bible. And so that's what led to many of the sciences that we have today. So whether it be science or literature or governments, in all areas of life, this floor is just showing how that it has impacted our world. There's also a section on that floor that talks about Bible Now. This book is being sought out right now more than any other book. Some of you may be familiar with an app on your phone called YouVersion, which is a free Bible. You download the app and you have hundreds of versions of the Bible on your phone. And if you haven't downloaded it, I encourage you to download it and get a reading plan. They have all kinds of reading plans, a week-long reading plan, a year-long reading plan, the whole Bible, a topic, all kinds of opportunities to engage with this book easily on your phone. You don't have to read it. You can listen to it. For your audio version, just listen to the Bible on the way to work. We just want to inspire people to engage with this book. In here, what we can show is a world map that shows people that are downloading this app right now. This is one of the most downloaded apps ever, over 300 million downloads when we opened. And what we can show is a world map where people are downloading this app right now all over the world. Another app, a world map, that can show where people are opening this app and engaging with this book right now all over the world. What are the most highlighted verses? You can highlight verses on there. What are the most highlighted verses last month or around the world or in Europe, or all kinds of information that we can show and let people know this book right now is being engaged by people all over the world. And I would venture to say there's probably not even a close second to this book. So that's what this section is. This floor also, each floor has kind of a theater. This is really, the theater space here is really a ride. It's a Disney-esque ride. If you go to California, it's called California Dreamin' at Disney Park there in Florida. It's Soarin', which is what it's called, where you sit in this chair and they get you in front of a big screen and it feels like you're kind of flying through California, and you go over the orange orchard fields and you get a scent of orange as you're flying over that. Well, this is the next iteration up. You're standing, you're holding on, and the whole platform will move and gives you the greatest sensation of flying. And we fly you through Washington, D.C., showing you different sites throughout D.C. where scriptures engraved on monuments throughout that city. We'll bounce you off the tidal basin. You may get a spray of mist in your face, and then as you come up to the Lincoln Memorial, which has the Gettysburg Address and the next second inaugural, and as you're coming up to the the Lincoln Memorial, Lincoln's sitting there, and as you're coming up, he will stand up, and then the background turns into the battlefield at Gettysburg, and you will smell the battlefield. So as you leave here, we can send you an app, give you a brochure where you can go out and find these sites yourself throughout DC and show how that it has been a part of our nation. So that's going to be a fun ride for our visitors. So that's the impact floor, just showing how it's impacted our world. And the narrative floor is for the person that really doesn't know the story at all. What do you do with a person that doesn't know anything about the Bible, never read any of it? We think a good place to start is telling them the story. That there is a story to this book, that a good creator God that created all things, and it was good. But he gave us choice. He had to give us choice because love requires a choice. And that choice was a tree. But a tree in the garden says, you do anything, just don't eat off that tree. Which I would argue is the original religious freedom. He gave us a choice to not serve him, which is the only way for us to truly love him, is when we have the choice not to. So, because of the disobedience, the relationship was severed, it was broken, and ultimately he had to send his son to pay the price so that that relationship could be restored. That's the story. You don't have to like it, you don't have to agree with it, but if you read the Bible, that's the Bible story. And so we think people ought to know that story. We have three different ways, three different parts of this floor. One of them is just the Hebrew text, the Old Testament, where that it's kind of a timed walkthrough. You go to a room, you hear part of the story, and then as a group you go to the next room, you hear that story, you go to the next room. It's about a 40-minute walkthrough And just show you a few examples. It's a world in chaos. This is the Great Flood. The picture on the right is what it looked like about a month ago, under construction. There on the left is the artist rendering of what it would look like. You have Abraham, Moses, the burning bush, Exodus from Egypt. It might get a little wet in this space as well. We'll see. The Ten Commandments. The left is the artist rendering. The right is what it was looking like after shot, again, from about a month ago. And so that's the 45-minute walkthrough for the Hebrew text. The New Testament is told in a theater form, about 11 minutes, and where we have 11 minutes to tell the whole New Testament story. That's it. So when we have a lot of pastors in the crowd, we just let them know it can be done. In 11 minutes. So we really just scratched the surface of this book's story, and this is about a 270-degree surround, some new technology being developed, and we have really engaged some of the leading design firms around the country to help us do this. This particular design firm works with Disney and very creative in the way that they're doing it. Some of them have built presidential libraries that we're working with, so we're looking to bring in some of the best talent to help us tell this book story in as an engaging way as possible. And then the third section on this floor, you have the Hebrew walkthrough, the New Testament theater, and that is what's called the Nazareth that Jesus knew, where we want you to feel like you're walking into Nazareth. So this is some actual shots, a couple shots that shows some of the olive trees that are going in here. There's a mikvah, a olive press, a typical carpenter's house, a home, and there will be docents dressed in costume explaining the culture, the climate, some of the teachings that Jesus taught. What does winnowing mean anyway? So this is a place where we can kind of explain and help make that some of the stories become more real. That's a typical synagogue. Again, what does a synagogue look like? Maybe a little bit smaller than the typical one, but there on the left is artist rendering, on the right is actual shot, again, as of about a month or so ago. So that's the narrative for the third floor is the history. We wanted to show people the evidence for this book. You can believe what you want to about it, but just be educated on what you believe about it. So here's a floor where we just present the evidence for this particular book. Starts with archaeological evidence, manuscript evidence, a Dead Sea Scrolls space here. There's we've been able to replicate the Great Isaiah Scroll, one of the most significant biblical discoveries ever, found at Qumran and at the Dead Sea. And so we want to tell that story. And there are some artifacts. We're working with the Israeli Antiquity Authority that potentially can have items on display there. This floor also ends with what's called Bibles for Everyone. There's an effort to translate this book into every language of the world. Bible Society is a group of about 8 of them, I believe, come together to the Dallas airport once a month and have for about 6 years, strategizing how to finalize that job. The rough numbers are about a third of the languages have a complete Bible. There's about a third that are in process of it being translated into that language, and a third that haven't even begun. Now, there is no book that even comes close to having that many translations. Roughly 2,000, and I think number 2 has less than 300 translations. And my understanding is it's book Pinocchio. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but some lists will put it out. So this space here will show the effort of trying to finalize that translation. They've actually targeted a date, and that is the year 2033, to have the book translated to every language or a portion of it for a very small percent when the number of speakers are very small. And what the visitor will see here is a representation of every book that is done, every language that's done. Those are in process and those that haven't even begun. If they make the goal, what a visitor will come back and see is that bookshelf filling up, so that in the year 2033, something that's never happened in the history of the world could happen in many of our lifetimes, and that is a book translated into every language of the world. So that's what we show here. So not only are we looking in the past and the history, how we got here, but also looking forward. There's demonstration labs on this where ongoing research is being done that we were involved in, and we'll be able to show that. And then as you go on up, the top 2 levels, floors 5 and 6, this is where the Israeli Antiquity Authority will have their own space. There's really about 40 different entities, collectors, libraries that are coming together and will have our items on display within the museum. So it's really a worldwide collaboration to celebrate this book. And the Israeli Antiquity Authority has 2 million artifacts in their collection. So they will be rotating items in and out there. There's a lecture hall space on top of the office building where we're excited about using that space. There's a theater, World Stage Theater. We have about a 470 seat. We will open with the Broadway play Amazing Grace. I don't know if anybody's seen that, but Amazing Grace on Broadway was more the John Newton story. John Newton was a captain of a slave ship that became a Christian and wrote the song Amazing Grace, the most popular Christian song ever, probably. And so that story is told and will be told here on the stage, and we'll be there for, I think, 60, 90 days or so. The movie, if you saw the movie Amazing Grace, it's more William Wilberforce's story, where the Broadway play is more John Newton's story. That theater can actually turn into this with projectors, which is called mapping. The walls can become our screen. It can be still like this or live. Again, going back to the impact floor, here's some of the greatest art that's ever been created at Sistine Chapel. We can make this room look like whatever we want it to, and excited to see that fully utilized to make the whole experience that much more immersive. So then on the 6th floor, there's, which is the top level, there's a gathering room, banquet hall, where we already have, I think, up to 50 different events scheduled in this space. Just excited about using this every night, something going on, some organization using the space. And there's a restaurant that's right next door to that will be serving foods of the Bible. We sent a couple of our chefs over to Israel for them to learn about the foods and types of the Bible. So we're excited about. So they've done some taste testing. I wasn't there, but they said it's really good food. There's also a little garden outside that restaurant where people go outside and enjoy the weather, and plants, shrubs, trees of the Bible that will be available there as well. So it's just exciting to see this all come together for us to be able to open it up here in November 18th, just shortly, a month from now, because again, we as a family have been, as I said, blessed by this book. We believe that this book is exactly what it claims to be. This is the most incredible book that's ever been written. When you think about how this book has come together, it's roughly over a 1,400-year period where roughly 40 authors came together to write this book. And how that it comes together. These authors were writing during all different times of life experiences, from the depths of despair or in prison to a king on his throne, from all different walks of life. And yet, when you put all these pieces together, it makes a story. Imagine starting a story today, writing a story, and it not being completed until 1,400 years from today, and it all making sense. That in itself is an incredible story. There is nothing like this book. And so we just wanted to encourage and inspire people to engage with it. If you're not engaged with it, I would encourage you to do that. You can do it on your phone with a simple app. Get to know it a little bit better. Get to know the author of that book better, which is ultimately what we hope. I'll end with a short video as well that tells a little bit about how this book has had an impact throughout history.
I think it's just incredible what you're doing and what he has accomplished. He's graciously going to be here for a while yet, so if you want to come up and learn more about what he's doing, how you can support it, how you can spread the word, we really will appreciate your time being with him. And he has some of his staff and guests here that are also available to talk to you. We appreciate you coming today. Thanks. We'll be getting word to you shortly about next year's breakfast, and we hope you'll plan to attend. Steve, thank you for your time. Thank you for what you're doing. Have a good day.